There. Should be good. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Grant Vanderford. I'm a first-year Wartburger, collaborative learner. I live in Fargo. Well, I live in Moorhead, Minnesota, but I work at a church in Fargo, North Dakota as the youth director. And let's see. I've worked in the church since 2009, and I have a wife named Petra, and I have a daughter named Selah, who is 21 months old, and she was at Grandma's house last night, so we slept in.
Maybe when you each take your turn, you could reintroduce yourself for Grant's sake.
No problem.
I'll turn it over to you to kind of moderate and.
Okay. Pastor Mark approached me about this. I think it was probably last fall, about the opportunity to explore the possibility of bringing students. Pastor Mark and I had worked initially on a project for the Western Iowa Synod, allowing students to come and see what rural ministry was like in Western Iowa Synod, because nobody wants to go serve Western Iowa Synod very bad. So this is an opportunity to introduce students from Wartburg and Gettysburg and Luther to the possibility of the seminaries to see what life was like. And if you haven't been out to Western Iowa, it's a lot different context in the eastern half of the state. And so Pastor Mark asked me about this opportunity, and I thought, wow, this would be kind of cool. And you know, hearing all the stories of the challenges and the joys of Postville over particularly probably the last 20 years, 25 years, and how the community has transformed. And so I asked Lorraine and John, and thank you, Judy, for joining John as well, and Annette, and then we're missing one, and that is Marcia Ruby. She's our Barnabas Uplift coordinator, and I printed off just a flyer here that I'll give all of you because it's an important ministry that we do in this congregation and partnering with the Synod and NICC out of Kelmer, the community college out of Kelmer, and about having the opportunity for those that live in poverty to be able to benefit and better themselves. And we were supposed to have a class going on right now. We had 2 Jewish young girls part of this. We had a Somalian, and then we had, I believe, 2 Guatemalans also part of the class. Well, with the Somalians and the Jewish girls, the instructor said we're only going to do this on Saturdays. Well, that doesn't work because that's their religious time. And so we said, Marcia and I vetoed it and said that we're not doing it. We're going to wait till fall. And the Northeastern Iowa Synod is very important in contributing to that. And this congregation provides scholarships. And it's about $1,500. Or I don't know, I think total is close to $1,500 a person when you figure instructor costs and so forth. And so I wanted to have an opportunity for these individuals from the education standpoint, from the administrative standpoint, to share and their stories, but also this gives you an opportunity. I think this is a good array of a mix of views and what they had what they endeavored during these years as well, and how they see the community transform. And so I really appreciate that, and they keep teaching me, and they help me learn, because every day it's something new, like Lorraine was saying. And so we miss Marcia. Her mother is ending the final days of this earthly life, and she needed to be there, and so I keep Marcia in our prayers as well. So before we begin, why don't we start with a word of prayer if I haven't done that already?
And are you hearing us okay, Grant? Okay, good.
Okay, let us pray. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for this time to be together and to learn and be in dialogue with one another and learn about ethnic diversity within the community, and what our calling as leaders in the church, and for those that reside in Postville. And may we be a word and a light of your hope and your mission of what the church is to be. We pray this through the risen Christ, Jesus our Lord. Amen. So I know you folks have kind of began telling your story, but Grant, that's correct, right? That's your name. And I don't know if Grant heard everything, so if we want to kind of go back through, it'll probably be good if Lorraine would like to just tell.
Just a brief review. I'm a Title I teacher. I teach supplemental reading at Postville School. This is my 16th year there. Lifelong residents of the area. I grew up in a neighboring community, Luena. My husband's been a lifelong member of this church, and I didn't say before, we are property slaves of this church. He and I are responsible for a lot of this, helping with the upkeep. We're head of the property committee. We did a major renovation of the parsonage before Pastor Lynn came here, and so that's kind of our second occupation is helping maintain the facilities here. And I would say I was teaching in the school the day of the raid on March 8th of 2008. Or March 12th, 2008, and or 12, sorry, get those dates. It's all March 12th, 2008. And so that I have a very lengthy experience with that day. That was kind of one of those life changers for me, but also seeing the evolution in our community from when when my oldest daughter was in first grade, saying there's a Hispanic girl in my class, child one of diversity coming into our district, to where we are today, 100% poverty in that mix. So that's my background. John, back to you.
You just brought back a lot of memories. I'm John Hyman. I'm the ex-mayor of Postville. I was mayor from 92 to 2005. My professional background is I'm an ex-school teacher. I came to Postville in 1970. I taught 33 years in the public school system here. And Lorraine talked about the first Latino. I go back to the first Vietnamese that came to Postville. At the end of the Vietnam War, there was a group from the Corps that came down to Postville, and I remember the hysteria in the school system of a strange person, a different person, a person who doesn't speak English, and it always kind of, anyway. So that's my background, and I guess I've been there and been through it a couple times.
My name is Annette Fry. I'm a teacher at the Postville Schools along with Lorraine, but I work with our Jewish population that we have under our homeschool assistance. So I'm going to bring that to the table today, my experiences with the Jewish community.
So is the students, Jewish students, all homeschooled, or what is? Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, the homeschool assistance program, they are not required to be part of. It's just a program that the public school offers, and we receive state dollars for it. And then the families enroll into it, and then we work with those specific families. So not all of the Jewish families are part of the homeschool assistance program.
But the majority of Jewish students
yeah, the majority of them are.
go to the Hebrew school, right?
Right.
But they're not part of the public systems. Only a select. Only a few that opt to be in the public school system are involved in the public school system.
Right, and they have their own non-certified school that they attend. But as a certified school, then we offer services to them that they don't receive at the Jewish school, where my role comes in.
Again, I'm Pastor Lynn Knoll. I've been pastor here since officially last August, and I'm a Wartburg grad. I graduated from Wartburg in 2012, and this is my second official call. I've been involved in parish ministry for going on 20 years in other aspects and fields of ministry. And so welcome, Grant, for you being along with us, and welcome all the other students. And Mark, you want me to kind of steer a couple things here that came to my mind as they were speaking. And one question I guess I have for you: what is the difference? And I sent Pastor Mark a couple links, and kind of pre-Postville and post-Postville. And one of them was Home Country, and Lorraine's daughter was part of that and helped.
That was her senior documentary project. So I hope you got a chance to see it, because that really summarizes what the experience, my Postville experiences in her documentary. I had to rewatch it again this morning, but and she was very hopeful that the sound and everything worked well for you. But that was their project, and it was and the part that's unique for us in that is Pastor Steve and Pastor Vasquez and Chad Walls and Mary Ramos are no longer in the community. They've all since left. So it was an opportune moment to catch those people, because within 6 months of that video, those people are no longer in Postville. So it was nice to get their perspective before they left. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Lorraine. The other one, I forgot what the title was. I didn't bring my email with me, but it was probably, I would say, in probably the early 90s. Yes, thank you. That was probably because Pastor Chuck Miller was interviewed in that one, and this church was very much a part of that video because of being predominantly a German community or a German congregation, Christian community, and how that was often be tenacious. And then all of a sudden, here's these Easterners moving into the community. They don't wave, they don't say hi. And it's, all of a sudden, it was a time of learning and how do you adapt living together and life together, I should say. But the question I have for you folks, how would you define pre-raid and post-raid? Particularly with the Jewish community. Pastor Mark and I were visiting a little bit about this earlier, because where the cultures collide, there seemed to be because you have if someone would like to talk about the taste of Postville and how that kind of brought people together as well.
I was going to say before I even get to that, and I don't know the Cultures Collide video. I'm not sure I recall that one. But I think John would agree with me. A lot of the information that is out there about Postville is wrong. I'll be quite honest. It's erroneous. And I can talk about Jackie's production because I know it's accurate. But a lot of things, a lot of people are observers from the outside, or even if they quote somebody, it's misquoted, it's misinterpreted. So like even Stephen Bloom's book, there's a big one right there. But I would say a majority of the videos and the information out there about Postville is wrong, to be quite frank. That would be my first comment about that. Pre-raid to post-raid, I would say Jackie's video pretty much covers my interpretation of it. We knew we had illegals for many years. I mean, that was not, you were aware, we didn't know who necessarily because the records are in the office and you don't sit there and go through each file and analyze who is and who isn't. I think we live under the shadow of fear that it could happen any day again, but do you live in fear or do you proceed and earn your living and move on forward? And that's just kind of the culture of change and just you celebrate the moment, you embrace the diversity, and that in our conversation, since I knew this was happening, we had kind of talked about it. Following the raid, there was kind of a silence moment where we kind of get over the shock and the result, and then there was the uncertainty, and then when the Native Americans were brought into Postville, it was where are we going from here? And then that didn't seem to work. That culture left, and then it grew back and it's grown bigger. It could happen again. We're totally aware of that, but on the other hand, you live each day the best you can. The sacrifices those families have made to get here, right or wrong, that's who walks in the door, and that's who it's my job to teach.
Well, we had ICE, supposedly ICE was back in town again, and so that brought up a little bit of fear in our school system again because they're in town. We had some kids that in the high school, I don't know about the elementary, but I know in the high school that they escorted home because there was just that fear of my kids have to go home. So I think that is constantly in their minds, especially the older ones that were here.
That understand.
Right, that were here when the raid happened originally. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are a lot of, do you know an estimate of kids who are in the school system, who are in high school now, whose families were here during the raid and have stayed in the community throughout that?
It's a difficult thing to monitor because our whole culture is transient. Whether they're Caucasian, Somali, whatever, it's not unusual to get an email each week at the school saying, right now I have 2 kids that, 4 left the high school this week and 2 in the elementary, and we have 4 coming in. Next week we've got rumor of 4 leaving. So to say in the big picture, how long you've been here since the raid, the few that you remember that you taught and you, you know, kind of tracked them, there are several. I mean, and you see that some of these families have stayed long term, but to say big picture, that's really difficult.
Yeah,
in and out.
Up until the last day of school, we have kids coming and going. I mean, it happened that last week of school.
Still have some registered.
And do you think that's, that is something that's prevalent throughout this, just rural schools or rural communities in general with the levels of poverty and things that people are dealing with, that there is that transience, or do you feel like that is a little unique to Postville itself?
I would say it's not unique to immigrant communities, but it's unique to, if you said Clayton, the 4-county area, Clayton, you know, I would say we're unique because you go to neighboring school districts, 1, immigrant, 2, and not as much of the poverty, but rural poverty is becoming more and more prevalent. But I would say overall, Postville it's of the 4-county area we're in.
We're our own little.
Yeah. And I know there's others, you know, Marshalltown, the other communities that do, but because they want to, just like any other culture, you want to stay close to family. Well, like even within the churches, there's not a mixing of those cultures into our church because they have their own church units based on their faiths. But also that's a family gathering. It's your friends and family worship together.
Well, and I know the churches in the community, the different churches have grown too. I'm on the board of adjustment in town, and they've come before us for changes, like with the building, change the coding of it. And we have a lot of different churches that we've approved, you know, because a lot of storefronts are empty, and we kind of look at it, well, do you want an empty business or do you want something occupying it? You know, we generally will vote to allow it to happen. But yeah, there have been quite a few different branches of churches that have started. At least in the last probably 3 or 4 years that I've been on the board.
We had a worship community here just prior before my arrival. They worshiped here, what, several years, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say at least 5.
Yes. And then the question is, why are there so many worship communities? And it's because they come from different cultures, and they're not all one group. And so they.
Well, and that's what comes up in our discussions with the board. Is, well, we have this church, but then we find, yeah, you're right, that it's just a different branch off of the bigger one. So, like I said, we've allowed it just because we'd rather see the businesses or the buildings have something in them versus just being completely empty.
How many grocery stores are there in besides Quillen's? Is there 4, 5?
The Jewish, the 2 on Green Street, 3 on Green Street, right? You don't frequent outside of your own, so that's why we're kind of a little gray on that. 3. There's 3 on Green Street, and the Jewish one on the main street.
And a small one on, well,
Yes.
Yeah,
So
about
there's
5.
5 plus grocery store that many of us go to. So 6 grocery stores total in the community.
We do have a new Mexican restaurant. I guess you could call it a restaurant. That started. We had one years ago, and then that had some issues. There's one down by where we're eating today that has been started, and I've heard very good things about it. That's great to see because we kind of lost that when the Mexican restaurant closed up. A lot of people frequented it, and so now they're hopefully bringing this one back again.
And you brought up the topic of Taste of Postville, and that was and I don't know how many years that happened. I want to say 4 or 5 years that we did. If they closed block 2 maybe of Green Street, and then every ethnicity, so even our church, we didn't do the German, or some people did Norwegian food, they could line that street, and we had, I would say, close to 40 different vendors, people grilling, that you could go and you'd pay like $1 or $2, and you'd get a tamale, and you'd get a krumkaka, and you whatever you'd sample, and it was a unique experience. And then on each end of the street, you might have, there was a Jewish comedian on one end, and on the other end, you'd have something else happen. They did a lot of those ethnic dances like we've seen at the end of Jackie's video that we've done at our diversity program. But that they would perform different things. They had a parade of the flags where they'd get children from each nationality, similar to our flags in our hallway in our building. Those kind of things happened at that Taste of Postville. So it was a neat little celebration. A lot of work, a lot of organization, and that drew a lot of people. It did. It probably happened during those years you were mayor. I was just saying.
It was over 10 years. This Festival of Immigration went on. Also, it was a welcoming of all the groups. Like I say, we blocked off Green Street, and there was 30+ vendors of ethnic food.
The car show on the next, I mean, it brought in a variety of different, and there was actually a cultural center, I forgot about that, that was on Green Street that Nina Taylor operated. And so ethnic art and books and just like giftware from different countries was available in the shop, and it was a kind of a tourism center. Really neat collection of things that because we also had a Ukrainian population several years prior that the Ukrainian and Kazakhstan culture also was in at that time. To see their art was neat to walk in that store.
It was between like 28 to maybe 32 different nationalities at one time in there.
Do you know what it is now?
I have no idea now. It's much, well, I don't know. You
Yeah, I was gonna say it would be,
just know.
you know, because of the Somalian culture, they're from like Kenya. They're different from, because basically a lot of those families are refugees. We went through a phase where some of those kids came in and they talked with their moms and would not talk to their fathers, and it was like, well, where's dad? And well, the fathers were killed. And when some of the older boys, they even dress some of the boys as girls to avoid abuse. So
That's from Iraq now, don't we?
yeah, I haven't heard that one. But
Afghanistan,
Afghanistan. Yeah, we have some Afghanistan.
And those, I mean, political. The stories I've heard.
Yeah, and somewhat confidential, but like the first name of the child, first name unknown, was put on the information. So they just put the initials, first name unknown. So the child's name is after you. Not even, and that's what they kept. So we kind of changed the name, but it's like, so some of those things that as they come in, you're just a new culture coming in. You've got to adjust and change. We had how many years ago was the accident with 3 or 4 years ago. It was 4 sisters, and a son was driving, and they were killed instantly. And just the culture of preparing for that funeral and things, we're thinking sorry. No, it's a celebration for them. They've gone to an afterlife. Yay for them. We're happy for mom. It's like, oh, we're so sorry you lost your mom. Yay for mom. Why were you sad? Why were you sorry? So there's always that cultural sensitivity that you feel like, I'm handling this pretty good. Or wait, no, I'm wrong. Or even the Hispanic children. Culture that's loving and hugging. It's like, I'm German by bubble. Do not invade my bubble.
Well, and as teachers, we're encouraged more with but yeah, I mean, even with my own youth students, because I work so closely with that family, I know the families very well, and the kids are like my own kids anymore now. And when they're gone on their holiday, I miss them, and when they come back, it's like, oh, it's so good to see, So, and I'm also a parent in this community. I like the Reyes too. My kids are in school. They don't think anything of it. I grew up not far from here, about half an hour from here, all white community, very sheltered growing up. So when I moved to Postville, my husband's originally from Postville. I mean, it was an adjustment for him, having grown up here. All of a sudden, all these people are coming in and changing his town. And then here I come from a very sheltered community of my own, Brazil, and it's like, oh, okay, I've never, even at college, I really didn't experience it. And with my daughters, it's just amazing to watch them because they don't think anything of it. They go to school, they have Jewish friends, through my work with the community. I don't think those kids would have reached out to my kids unless they had that trust from me. And okay, my family is, we're cool, we're good. And so my daughters embrace it all. And it's fun to see. We have neighbors that are Jewish, they're playing with them all the time. They've got, it's just, they don't think anything of it. Kids are so good about that, and we're starting them out when they're little. And
I think back to Ron's guidance lesson, where he had the 2 boys stand up in front of the classroom. One was obvious Hispanic or dark, and the other was Caucasian. And they asked him, what's the differences in the 2? They're like, well, he's tall and he's short. And, it's everything but he's wearing an orange shirt, he's wearing a yellow shirt. Nothing, never once said the differences in the 2 races. They're race blind. Right? They're very unique.
So our kids are going to be better off because of the experiences they're having right now.
I was wondering, with some of the new groups you're talking about, like the Afghan and Somali refugees who have been coming in, is the draw for new people who are arriving still the plant, or is there other things that are pulling them to this community?
Well, it was kind of a subtle joke that there must be a sign somewhere that says,
Right.
Postville. You never know.
There is.
Oh, there is, okay.
I have seen.
You have seen it, okay,
I'll go back to the history lesson.
sure. Maybe I'll learn something.
Shortly after I became mayor, I met with the former plant manager of a plant that's now extinguished, no longer here. And I was informed that they had hired a recruiting firm to bring in Latinos because the workforce was shortage. A couple, 3 years after that, a professor from UNI, Mark Gray, and one from the University of Iowa, I can't think of his name right now, hosted a tour that I was on and went to Mexico. And we did not go to the tourist sites. We were in the backcountry. And I did find that sign.
That is true. It's true.
Basically, want to go to Postville, Iowa. Yeah, it was there.
Well, and with the Jewish community, obviously, it's a social plan that brought us here. There are families that are settled here. It's kind of a transient population to it, but I think for the most part, the families that I work directly with, I've been doing this for 7 years. Most of them have been here that long and or even longer. So obviously, yeah, the plan for them is what drives them.
John, probably one of our first visits we had when I first came here, you went to Central America, correct? Describe what you saw and what was transpiring there. And maybe, I wish more people would maybe hear that, because it's just like, oh, everybody's coming from Mexico. No, it's not coming from Mexico. If you'd like to share your thoughts and observations.
Like I say, I was back in the hill country, the central. We were south of Mexico City, someplace out in there. And a lot of the people from Postville were from this area we went into. We did find a couple of cars down there with Iowa license plates on them. Situations. But we were the honored guests, and they had slaughtered the fatted pig and all this kind of stuff for us. We were very honored. But to see the poverty, just to see it, to see the lifestyle, things that I take for granted. It's not for granted at all down there. You can see where they are looking for a better life, something better than what they've got. They've also, is interesting, is that a lot of the immigrants that in this area on Saturday morning are sending gifts back to their home community. And we did see some things in the home community that were improvements from the people in Postville that were sending money back to their improving their community. But yeah, it's, like I say, it wasn't, no way were we in the tourist area. I think it was a Sunday morning, whatever, I was with the mayor of Marshalltown, and Sunday morning we left our hotel downtown Mexico City, and we were waiting for our bus van to take us to the airport. And we went and sat in this park and was just observing. And one of the first things we observed was this big black bus pull up across the park. And out came these people in uniforms. And I looked at him and he looks at me, and we're just going to sit here. We don't know what they're up to. But it's just that feeling you got of being in that area. And after seeing it, I can't blame any of those people for wanting to crawl, climb, dig, whatever to get here. Because this is a much better life, even though our packing plants pay in minimum wage or a little better, even though this is poverty level for us, for them, they're on top of the world.
And I agree with that. I talked to somebody here, because I've always, they drive fancy cars, they seem to have better stuff here than what some of us do. And they said it's not about them showing off, it's more about the pride that they have, that they are doing better for themselves. And when that was put into perspective for me, I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of explains it a little bit more, that they didn't have that where they came from, now they have it, so it's more of a pride thing, it's not a showing off thing, it's just being proud of earning.
And I was to say in the fall of 2007, the Shalom Sun allowed us as a teaching staff to go through the plant. That was the first time I'd ever been in there, and it's an experience. Another one of those experiences I'll never forget. But I had no idea of the immensity of that facility. To see the chickens going round and round it in this immense tower, to see the sides of beef going through, and to see, but then again, to see the parents of our students standing on a box trying to work, and then the stories that you heard after the raid of what these people had endured. It was like, I had no idea. You don't go through factories and facilities in any community. It's not unless, it's not a thing you frequently do. But I think had any of the staff members or any other Postville citizens ever go through that plant, it's there, it's an entity there, but I don't think any of us have a concept. And that's grown since then. It's huge. It's a monstrous facility that we, for a small community, have no concept of how.
It's gone backwards too.
Yeah, it has.
It was huge and it was growing tremendously. And now it is backpedaled down. That's where it's solid again. Basically, the old high-grade plant was a slaughter plant. Agri-processors purchased it, enlarged it from slaughter to meat processing. And when I left office, they had started into the sandwich meat, the chicken nuggets, and I forget what else.
The frozen dinners was.
They were processing. Getting into that area of processing.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
And quite frankly, the owner of it's Agri-processors, not Agri-Start, Agri-processors. Oh, Rabashkin, I can't think of his first name right now. Aaron,
father.
Aaron, it was the owner. And he looked at agri-processors as his way of taking care of his people, Jewish people. He was feeding, providing food for his people of his faith. Because, I wish I could have documented this too. I had a meeting with Aaron Rabashkin, a couple of his hired hands. 4 o'clock in the afternoon after school's out, I was sitting in my mayor's office. And I got a lesson on the camps. Concentration camps. And Aaron gave me a personal lesson. So you can see where he was coming from.
Well, over the years, the Jewish community, the Jewish, and this is what I've learned. And I actually, when John Roethlisberger was there, he's the one that really, with the program, he kind of helped me to change it. But he's like, we don't realize, we think of them as being very closed off and very defensive, but really they've had to be. When you look at over their lifetime and over centuries of persecution, they act the way they act because of what's happened to them in their life. And it's just trickled down over the centuries and stuff. So for us in this community to see them while they don't want to talk to us, that's because that's just how they are, that's their way. Not all the families are like that. I've encountered in my work that there are some very awesome, great families, and then you've got some that it's just in their religion not to talk to a woman, and you accept that. You accept that. I mean, it's hard because they walk right by you, but that's just, and those I think are more the Hasidic. We've got the Chabad and we've got the Hasidic community, and as I'm learning, there's differences, and even within that, we've got some that wear the fur hats and the white stockings on Saturdays, where the Chabad are a little more, they wear coats and the pants and stuff. And one family's like, well, we kind of have it though. The Hasidic ones, so even within their own community, they have the huge differences and see themselves very similar. But that was a big adjustment for me, was walking down the street and they're not going to say hi to you. Well, it's not that they are snubbing you. It's just, that's just part of their culture, and you learn to adjust to it.
Plus, the men are not allowed to speak to the women.
Right. Outside of.
Yes, out of their sect.
Right. And that's not the case with all of them.
No.
one of the traumatic experiences I had was we had a Jewish, who was a member of the community, elected to the city council. And I went to his celebration of his election. And his mother shook my hand.
Really?
Is that Aaron Goldsmith?
Yeah, his mother.
He's the one that was part contributor to the book that you read.
No.
Because that's really unusual.
And I kind of go, she wants to shake my hand.
Yeah.
And I'm going, yay. And a little later, I says, Aaron, she shook my hand. That's my mother.
Well, and there are some that were not religious, and they told me that they were not raised religious, and they have become religious. So that's kind of an interesting perspective too. I've got one family whose mother wears pants. Or her daughters lives here, but her mother comes from Florida, and she'll wear pants, and I'm like, that's not my thinking here. And she's like, well, she's not religious the way we are. So it's different perspectives.
That is interesting that there, even within a community, there are differences. And we have a tendency to look at a group of people and kind of paint them as all the same. And there's distinctions with them.
And we have two synagogues here. I don't know if Pastor knew that. We have two synagogues. They started one a couple of years ago. And I think that's more for the Hasidic community. Yeah.
Another interesting little tidbit. I also work installing appliances. A Jewish family came into town, remodeled the house, and put in appliances. So we arrive with a truckload of appliances. We go in there, and the husband and wife are both there. And of course, in the Jewish community, the wife hair is very sacred. Mm-hmm. So usually when you see them in the public, they have a wig on. Okay. All of a sudden, the lady takes the wig off. In front of us,
Really?
we're in her home, and she's takes her wig right off, puts it on the mannequin, and she continues to converse with us.
She didn't put a head covering on?
Nope. I was just, these are things, little things.
Well, that's not.
That's not.
You know, generally, yeah, they'll have a head covering or something, or they'll have their hair, but for her to.
We were right, in the midst of it, but the individualistic things you run into, meeting with the various people.
Different, yeah.
We have a Somalian girl that's on the track team. She's got a special job to where when she runs. I mean, you adapt, you change, you make it work. But I think one of the kids said, going back to your, going to the Jewish concentration, he said he was asking how my family came to Postville. And of course, my grandfather, my husband's family, they came to the United States escaping. There was no room in Germany for them anymore, and so they knew things politically weren't right, so that's why they came. So he said, so Mrs. Shooting, in a sense, we're all escaping political problems and we're all survivors. They're like, oh, sometimes I think the children bring out the thoughts that they're understanding this and reflecting on it far deeper and to hear their stories of how they crossed the border, or what they had to do to get here. Or it just changes your perspective. You are definitely appreciative of what you have.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you have initially that Jewish population who did suffer in many ways, but especially during the war, and now you have people who are qualifying in refugee status coming here because they also have been under persecution. I mean, it's very parallel. It's very interesting. It's sad
no matter
to see
what
that history keeps going that way. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly a pattern, which is just interesting sort of to consider.
Well, one of my families, when they first came here and I was assigned, they probably, since I was German, and the mothers come on and said that, your ancestors are probably from Germany. And I'm like, yeah. She didn't want, at first didn't want to have anything to do with me, but again, it was that trust building. It's like, and we had a conversation, and I said, yes, my ancestors are from Germany, but that doesn't mean I agree with what happened. That we looked at each other as individuals, and that, well, you're German, so I'm not going to like you right now. She's very comfortable with it. So this is that conversation piece.
How do you think the community as a whole responds to more stereotypical takes on immigrants or Jewish communities versus from what I hear from you all is that these individualistic relationships are how you respond to people, and that's you respond to people as people. not as stereotypes. Is that kind of common in the community?
I mean, do we have a lot of hatred?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think we have. Do we have that? I mean, it's not outright where we have.
I've been on both sides of this coin.
Yeah.
There was a time, there was a group in town that was tar and feather them and drive them out.
Yeah.
Get them out of here. And of course, I was mayor. And I'm not that type of person. And we've gone to now, I would say, we are more welcome in seeing them as individuals, not as a group so much.
Right.
On the diversity celebration, when we do that with the school every other year, the first year we did it, I'd say the gym was full, but it wasn't packed. Now we're on our third round. The gym is packed and probably standing room only because we just draw in, you know, those people coming in and then the people in town and the people outside of town, you know. It's an amazing thing to share our own cultures with everybody and to watch people.
But there are some that are resistant. You get that in any.
Yeah.
But I think immediately after you look out at recess, you know, if you look out the window, kids mix. They play soccer, they play basketball, whatever. It's not this group or that group. But immediately after the raid, it did. Whenever you're in crisis, you revert back to the team, you know. You revert back to your own group. The Hispanics would sit in this corner, you know. But overall, you don't see it. But if there's a problem, for example, we had an incident where a student brought in a weapon into the school just last year, and it's that group. It's that group that did it.
Right.
Those
Stereotypes.
It doesn't show on the surface, but those stereotypes come back whenever there's crisis, whenever there's a problem. Yes,
And
those do come back. So you want to believe that it's not there, but it is. And you know, and you go to the next town, and you know, it's like, oh, you have to work with that. You know, it's there. It's just on the edge. It's always a presence.
Well, I think the kids learn it from their parents because I don't think the kids necessarily recognize that stuff anymore, especially in England. So where are they getting it from that older generation that has that stereotype?
I was just reading an article from the Washington Post this morning. You know, obviously, you folks are living what has been a significant piece of our political discourse, and you're living it. There are a lot of people talking about it, and this piece that I read was talking about the deportations since Trump took office. And of course, a lot of the rhetoric is these are bad hombres. And they actually did the research, and a huge majority of them, the biggest offense anyone had committed was a traffic violation. Most of them had no offenses at all, but they were undocumented and they were found.
And the process to become documented is not easy. The process
You know, from someone we're aware of, it's 20 pages, but that was the same as those that were taken in the raid. They had no offenses other than their information was falsified to get them. And there are other layers to it that we'll never know.
When this all kind of got started, Mayor of Columbus Junction talked to me. Columbus Junction's got the history of having a meatpacking plant built in their community from scratch, and in come the immigrants. And the mayor says you're going to have 3 waves of immigrants. The first wave will be a very rough wave of workers, primarily single men, unattached, no family connections, hip backgrounds, really bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you go back into Postville's history, yep, we had them. We had gang problems. It was all there. The second wave, we start to have families. Married people, married men coming into the community. Married men bringing their kids into the community. Now we got some reason for these men, these guys, to be here, to work. The third wave, and this is the wave that was here before the raid. community supporting people. Now we've got families with grandma, grandpa, bringing in aunts and uncles. The entire families are coming in. They want to be in Postville. They want to be together. They want to be part of the community. And then the raid happened. And I didn't know about when the raid was going to happen, but I also knew what happens when there's a raid, because Marshalltown, about 15 years prior to Postville's, was raided. And all the things that happened here, that happened in Marshalltown too.
They were our go-to for information.
I was serving in southwestern Minnesota when the pork processing plant there was raided in Worthington. And
John Johnson, our band director, is from there.
yeah, it was devastating.
Oh, yeah.
And the approach that they took was so almost intentionally cruel. They raided the plant on the Festival of Guadalupe, claiming they didn't know that. Well, even if you didn't know, somebody should have known that. And they were asking, they went into the plant and they were asking people to show their papers. Well, a lot of them had their papers at home. They were carrying them out personally. And then they were afraid to tell them where they lived, for fear their kids would be swept up in this. The kids had to go to one of our ELCA churches became a center for the kids to gather after school. It was.
Yeah, that's what we learned through our experience. And you guys can jump in at any time. The day of our raid, we heard noises sound like lawnmowers going back and forth, but that's really strange that the lawnmowers are going so often. Well, it's actually the helicopters coming over. And because I teach Title I, my groups change throughout the day. And when I came down the hall, saw a teacher in tears, and then as I went further down the hall, another teacher said, "Well, can you help me? Can you take some of these kids to your room?" And I'm just got kids on cell phones. I didn't know really what was going on, and so it never came over the loudspeaker. We were just trying to all grasp what was going on. So it ended up that a lot of the kids with cell phones, there was 3, for whatever reason, our building was K7, K8 at that time, came to my room, and we had them in my room, and these girls were on the phones with their moms in the plant, and they were, "Mama, I love you," and "Can you get a hold of here? This girl." Okay, so we go out, we try to find that girl. "Mama, I love you." We don't know what's happening, and so we had, and then when other kids would come in, they get a sister or brother, they'd start to cry. They knew immediately what was happening. So our job at the end of the day was to send all the Caucasians, anybody that was a citizen, home on the buses, and then the rest went to the Fine Arts Center, because during a raid, you're safe either in a school or a church. Those are the 2 places. So we went to the Fine Arts Center with all the kids, and someone who could pick them up, take them home, and we had to document where they went, because we didn't know where these kids were going as best as we could, who took the child. And by 5 o'clock, we found out that parents were all congregating at the Catholic church. That's where they were going to find. So we loaded the kids on buses and took them to the Catholic church, and walking in there was chaos, people in tears, and I speak no Spanish, so I would not in any way be a translator, but the kids know me, and so several of us teachers rode the bus to the Catholic church, and in getting in there, people were in pews, just kind of landing, just trying to get a grip of it all. There was really no organization to it. Sat down in the front of the Catholic church, and that's to the point where I met Pastor David Vasquez, and he was talking. He's a liaison for immigration, and so he was from Luther College, also on staff at Luther, and had come there to be of help, because he knew that's where people would go. And no more than just sat down and was visiting with him, and some students came up to me and said, "Mrs. Schutte, what do we do now?" And I started looking at me. I don't know where Mom and Dad are. I don't know where any of my family are. What can we do? And at that point, Pastor David and I started to make a list of who was missing. Paper and pen up here out of nowhere. I don't recall that particular thing. And then a couple hours later, somebody came with a computer, and we started putting it all on a computer. Who was missing? Who would be a contact and a cell number to contact them? Because David had known that, Pastor David had known that once the attorneys come in, we can help these families out by knowing who they are. At 10:30 at night, we finally finished the list. We had over, I think we were close to 500 people on our list of who were missing or that they just didn't know where to go. And I had just gone into the room to sit down at a table, and a Hispanic woman who spoke no English gave me a plate and a glass that was an ice cold casserole and really warm milk. And I was like, no, somebody else needs this. I'm going to be going home. It's fine. No, eat. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to be sick. You know, and at that point, there was a commotion behind me. We're in the fellowship hall, and that's when the moms came in. And they had numbers written on their arms, and they had the electric monitor bracelets on their ankles. And if I ever thought I was close to a Holocaust system, it was at that moment. I just was like, oh my gosh. And they were in fear. And it's just the looks on their faces of what have we just been through. And then the stories started coming in of people hanging on hooks in the freezers to avoid immigration, people jumping into the trucks of tankage, the innards, the guts, the disposal. They had hid in those trucks trying to escape, nearly dying because they were suffocating in the blood and guts of those trucks. People hidden in homes with no electricity, not using any electricity or water to bring, to attract attention. And then you're just sitting there thinking, what's going to happen next? Where are we going from here? And then one boy came over to me as I finished eating and thinking, I've got to go home. My own children are at home. And the boy came up to me and he said, Mrs. Schutte, I want to tell you this. I said, yeah. He said, my mom's going to jail. And she was with my aunt. My aunt is here because my mom and my aunt were sitting in the room. And they had to decide who was going to go and who was going to stay because somebody had to get back to us. And each family is a family of 5 children. And they said, so mom's gone to jail, mom's gone, and my auntie's here, and we don't know where we're going to go. And it's just at that moment, the reality hits, what would you do? What would you do? And so the next morning when I got to school, and you're just numb at this point, and our Spanish class teacher met me at the door, and she said, you got a van, right? And I said, yeah, I do. And she said, I need to get some cars for some people. Would you do this? I followed the law. And I did. I went with her. We stopped at a house, we picked up a student and put him under the blankets. And we drove to the back plant. I was so scared I could hardly breathe. And she took those keys and she got into the car, and I didn't see anybody out there, but you could just feel those eyes burning on me. I can't end up singing, it was like, and she said, just drive back to school. So drove back to school, drove right up to the door. Go in, get into school. And he was there. And we tried to teach, but so many of the kids were gone. They were at the Catholic church yet. So we were like, some of us went to the Catholic church, some were at school. And a boy came up to me that I've known for years. I had him in class because, of course, I have my kids for 3-4 years. And he said, Miss Schutte, Mom and Dad are home. There's no food. We're afraid to use the water. We don't have any lights on. Can you help us? And so I went next door to another coworker, and she said, why don't you just go to the store and get some stuff? And a couple of their teachers were right there. In no time, I had $200 cash, went to the grocery store, brought it up, put it behind my desk, and we'd have kids come in, fill your backpack, go home, do the best you can. We went to the church, tried to teach. Some of us stayed at school, some of us went to the church and tried to teach there. And it's like you're on autopilot. The decision that I made at that time, I was like, I didn't know what to do. You just trusted in your heart. You did the right thing. Was it against the law? Was it for the law? You didn't know. You just did the best you could.
Well, that's where your Christian life and your Christian thought is coming out.
It was just like, where do I need to be? What do I need to do? Some kids you never saw again. They're gone. Some kids, their families stayed. Like the boy in the video, he tried to continue on, but it was just there's nothing you could do. You did what you could. We served meals at the Catholic Church, served supper for 3-4 months afterwards. So each church took a night, Catholic night, Lutheran night. Each church would take turns serving a supper so that they have one hot meal. That was where the information came. Red Cross came in, clothes came in. There was, whatever anybody needed, there was some things provided there, but people were just afraid to use something to go out the door. And so it was something I would, the Keystone people came in at our area education agency and tried to help. They didn't get it. There was nothing they could do to rectify the situation. You heard newscasts, you heard of what was happening at the Cattle Congress in Waterloo as far as processing. Dr. David, or Pastor David, excuse me, would contact us frequently, updating on what's happening. But one of our ESL teachers is Ukrainian, and she was working to help Ukrainian families. And the frustration and the helplessness of, they couldn't even find where they were. After they're processed in cattle camps, they were sent to random jails. They had no idea. That one wife spent months just trying to find where her husband was. He was in Cedar Rapids. Went to Cedar Rapids, and the process had happened, and he was shipped somewhere else. She spent months trying to find her own husband because they did not divulge where they were. It was so out of your hands. So best we could do, and I work with some people that are in charge of the Catholic Church that work heavily there, and the Presbyterian Church. We just did what we could to help provide a hot meal. Whatever they asked for, we tried to help. But it was, and so and looking back, some of these kids that went through it, I want to be an immigration lawyer. I want to change the world. They can't. It's so above and out of their hands. And on top of it all, their family system has been destroyed. There's no money for it. They need to provide for their family. This is what it comes down to.
Well, there were a couple of our kiddos that were seniors that were going to college and were no longer able to get any scholarships or scholarships. And these were kids that were doing very well in school, from what I understand, and would have, wanted to make a better life for themselves. And they were forced to quit. And we still have some even today that tried to go to college. Their parents are illegal, but they can't see it. They end up quitting college, and
guess where they work.
So they're trying to make a better life for themselves, but our immigration system is so, I don't want to say jaded, but it's so hard to become a legal citizen in this country. A friend of mine, the Elmer and Jennifer Herrera, Jennifer owns the bakery here in town, and Elmer was illegal at the time they weren't married. And I got to know Jennifer and Elmer through my job at the Jewish or with the Jewish population. But Elmer himself, he went into hiding himself for a couple of days, and she didn't know where he was at. He just finally, maybe 2 years ago, became a legal citizen, and he left Guatemala because of political ramifications. He couldn't stay in his own country. And so he actually worked, and you probably remember Elmer, he worked closely with the plant and trying to get it unionized. He knew a lot of this stuff was coming down, and he was able to forewarn some people. But he himself was illegal and went into hiding. I wish he was here. I'd asked them, when Pastor and I talked about that, I asked them to come back. They've moved down since and live up in Wisconsin. But I think just the memories of this community for them are hard, and the frustration. Because Elmer knew a lot of what was going on at the plant and how frustrating it was. And I just think it's hard for him to come back here and try to. And his story would be one that you really want to hear, because he actually, I think he was a teacher in Guatemala, if I remember right. And he's just a very professional person and had to leave the country for political and came here. And he worked at the plant at one time and himself, he knew what was going on. Couldn't do anything about it.
I want to quick check in with Grant. Did you have any questions or anything you wanted to chime in with?
I just want to say thank you for sharing your stories, because I know that's not always easy. And for your dedication. I can't imagine what it's like to be drawn into something that you don't know what it's going to be like, and then to just go with the flow. Each one of you is incredibly faithful to your call. As a Christian person is what I see. It's just incredible the way that you just love people where they are and for what they need. So one question that I did think of was, do you is the level of fear of another raid high or medium or low right now, or what's that like right now?
It was, I would say it's at a low. It was at a low until the first child wore the Trump t-shirt that said "Build a wall." Yeah. And you wouldn't believe the fear that has come back. You know, just that kind of a phrase, while seemingly innocent, it strikes fear. So it's the uncertainty of our current political system. I'm not faulting it. I'm trying to stay politically neutral as I can, but that's more of an imminent threat than maybe, it's been brought more to light than maybe it would have been, if you say back in June before, that kind of a statement came out. I think it's always a constant fear that any day this could happen, because it did. And just a couple months ago, as Annette alluded to, there was kind of a fear, there was a rumor that maybe they were coming back. So I think it's always kind of a constant concern.
And I think our school district, we're busting at the seams, which we're really fortunate right now. We're one of the few in the area that are increasing in enrollment and having to hire teachers. I don't know how many we've hired.
Yeah. I was going to say, my son's graduating class in 2012 was 26, and our current fourth grade is pushing 75.
So we're very fortunate. But I think, we really should be adding on to our school district when you look at how full our rooms are. And we have no more space to put I don't know where we're going with all these teachers. But I do think our administration is a little hesitant to build, or the school board is to build, because everything relies on that plan.
And in that class of 2012 was just 4 years after grade.
Right. In talking with my Jewish families, I think the plant is stable right now. I mean, one of my families said to me, because they're so unique themselves with the kosher plant, that they don't foresee it going anywhere. So I kind of rely on that. And I do, fill out my families just to see where the plant sits. And our program has been stable. We've lost a few here and there, but overall we've been pretty stable where families have stayed here and have it home. But I do think that fear is that if the plant were ever to go, we're going to have that same thing happen. And just our kids, who are kind of the minority right now, will be the only ones left. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole thing is political, plain and simple. Who knows where national politics is going to go on it. The raid that did happen was totally political. I've done a little research on it, and I pretty well got it nailed down to what happened. And it was totally a try to make somebody look good in the view of the public on the eve of the campaign. So I can say that the idea of raid, again, is always there, particularly in these families who have been affected with it. It's something that isn't going to go away. You may try to make it go away, but it's always in the back of their mind.
Well, it has to be. I think they always have to be prepared for that now. They don't have that safety anymore.
They don't feel like putting down the roots.
Right. And that's affected our community.
Try to stay mobile, pack up and leave, go.
You look at,
disappeared.
I don't know if you've had a tour yet of downtown, but we have a lot of empty storefronts. And for what I understand from my husband, and just talking, having not grown up here, Postville used to be a pretty big town, and we had several grocery stores. And
so this is a Green Street and the Main Street were full.
And now
I went out for lunch with a coworker on a TQ day, and it was like, that used to be a women's clothing shop, that used to be a child's clothing shop. This used to be like a Walmart with the towels, and this side of the street was, this was an automotive shop. That you could say what each building was, and they were occupied. I mean, some of them too. We had a jewelry store, men's clothing on the one side, and restaurant on the other. I mean, it was.
But some of that has small town economy.
Right, and that's it's.
But it's not growing. We don't see the businesses coming in. I mean, we actually just lost one of our gas stations in town. And
two.
Yeah. And now the one we do have downtown is being moved to the edge of town. So we just don't have the businesses coming in.
John, referring to the political aspect, with you being the mayor, could you touch about first, what if you have done research on Postville, normally you could relate this to a natural disaster, what took place. It was just like an implosion. And normally you have National Guard come in, you have Red Cross come in, you have all these relief agencies come in to help, and whether displaced families. Could any of you comment what happened? I shared with the group, it was kind of like Postville was toxic, and our leaders kind of wanted to stay away from this. And then secondly, in regards to how is the trust with leaders, whether it's state or government, and aspect of because the ramifications, what happened to the local government? That's probably a better
Well, I was
question.
gonna say, because if you talk outside of local government, but the huge election year that we just had, how many candidates came to Postville?
That's what I'd like
Yeah,
you folks to,
zero.
that's what I'd like you folks just to reflect on a little bit.
Yeah, Barack Obama goes through here.
Drove through, but he didn't stop.
Was that an election?
No.
No, it was just a random drive-through.
I'm not excited, but yeah.
No, even like local, the state representatives and said, no, don't touch it. No.
Which is interesting because I mean, it's almost been a decade, which seems like a long time, you know, in some respects, that is still really being this, you know, tag on the community is kind of, to me, it feels a little surprising that after almost 10 years, that still the community is seen that way from the larger outside, you know, system.
It's still in a state of flux.
Mm-hmm.
It's still evolving. And a lot of it's got to go to this immigration stuff because, like I say, people are scared to put down roots. It goes back to owning property, owning a house, et cetera, et cetera. If tomorrow morning there's a noise, you're out of here. You know why? Well, so you keep your car full of gas. There's things like that just are still out there.
Well, I don't think it'll change until we have something change in the political system.
I was going to say, politically, even if there had never been a raid, with just the rhetoric that exists and the threats that exist now, I feel like if I was in that position as an immigrant, yeah, I would keep the gas in the tank because, I mean, there's a very threatening kind of discourse going on, let alone the trauma that has already impacted a lot of people in their reality. I mean, it's not surprising.
Another little side thing about this whole immigration thing. Yes, I knew there was immigrants in Postville, illegals, when I was mayor. Whenever our police department would stop a vehicle, speeding, whatever, it soon became evident we had an illegal. One of the things I always did as the mayor was ICE. Well, it wasn't ICE at that time, it was immigration, whatever it was called.
I know.
We always notified them. A letter was sent from my office to them and to our political people. I never got a response.
So they didn't.
I was to say that was the frustration of it. Why wait? Some of these families have been here 15 years. Why wait 15 years before you say you can no longer live here?
They'd already settled down, they'd already made.
It was some of those families that had been here for the long term. That why'd you wait so long then?
Yeah.
If that was your intent to monitor illegal immigration, then why let them stay here for 15 years? When you knew they were here. Obviously they did. You know, the message had gone through. Why would you
They
wait?
knew.
So you were following the law, you were doing what you were supposed to, and they're just sitting on the paperwork.
Yeah, I didn't
until the
get
right time to.
Our paperwork went one direction, one way. It never came back.
I mean, until it was a benefit to the government.
Political.
Very political.
Plain and simple is what it was.
How did the town able to survive? Because if you have no workers working, they can't pay the bills, they can't pay utilities, they can't pay taxes, they can't pay garbage, they can't
We have a lot of houses
rent.
for sale.
The town, honestly, and I'm not a member of the administration anymore. I'm an outside looker, and I'm actually even out of the community, truthfully with you. I live 2 miles outside of town. The town, honestly, and so it goes back to my administration too, was broke. It was broke. We never told anybody. It was that bad.
Losing high grade was huge.
Well, yeah, the high grade plant was prior to my administration, and it They paid $15, $20 an hour worth of wages. Agri processors came in and came in at minimum wage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, down the line. The raid happened, people left, water bills didn't get paid, houses got abandoned, blah, 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 blah. And then the plant went bankrupt.
And all of these other, the co-ops, the Prairie Egg, all of these businesses that had feed bills to be paid.
One of the big dumb things that happened in that whole deal was when they settled the bankruptcy, the city did not get their property taxes. Agri processors owed property taxes to the city of Postville. A plant that big, that's a big chunk of money. It did not come out of the bankruptcy. So the city lost. I can't really point fingers, but really no one went after the bankruptcy court for those tax dollars. You can talk about the county treasurer, you can talk about, whatever. It just never got brought up. So you talk about there's a tremendous amount of funds that was lost. But I think the town really, we can do it.
We held on. I was gonna say,
There's a lot of pride in the community.
it was scary. It was, you just wondered financially if we were gonna buckle under.
They've been broke.
And nobody from the outside was willing to come in and help.
No.
Government assistance, nothing to try to get the community back on.
There's been grants in the community as far as housing development for your fixing up reverberation. That kind of grants have showed up, but that's it.
Because like that's what I was referring to earlier. If you had like a tornado or devastation,
there's a follow-up.
you have money that can come in. Yes, FEMA, thank you. And nothing came.
Because this is totally political, the government's gonna stay out of it.
Well, and I remember I worked a little bit with Mark Olson when she was here, and she was the coordinator for the hospital response center. Yeah, anyway.
She was a real key player.
Yeah, and she had put forth several proposals for FEMA funds from the state, and they were denied because it wasn't seen as falling into that category of that.
Did you lose?
Because it was more of a humanitarian disaster, but because of the
back.
they never approved it. So.
And some of this hot potato thing goes back to the plant too.
Right.
The ownership of the plant did a lot of things that were disapproved of by the federal government.
Well, there were many layers that were accused.
Yeah,
the management was.
It just keeps
the
going.
Secretarial staff was accused. I mean, several of those underlying people also went to jail. Whether they had knowledge of it or not, it's not my job to judge. But they went to jail.
The bankruptcy yanked a lot of money out of some big pockets. That happened in there. The management of agri processors did a lot of things that the government didn't appreciate. Stopped them in the red flags in front of the government. The government says, "Whoa," and consequently, there's stigma.
Well, and that's one topic when I'm working with my family that I really avoid. Obviously, for professional reasons. But the first couple of years I was working in the community, and I started in 2010. So it's been a couple of years after, Shalom, God raw deal, they would have prayer time for Shalom when I was over at the school. I mean, it was pray Shalom, pray Shalom. I don't hear it as much now anymore, but it's not a topic I bring up either, because I have my personal views on it, but obviously I can't bring it into the professional. But I don't hear them talk nearly as much about it as I did when I first started. So.
But similarly, like I said, a lot of the things you hear about Postville, you wonder, the information you get is second, third hand.
Yeah.
Are those things true that we're hearing about what happened, behind the scenes, or what's happening as far as the legal system for those that have been incarcerated related to this whole event, or the whole situation? You just don't know what to believe unless you hear that story firsthand. You're not a doubting Thomas, but on the other hand, you're not judging, and it's out of, it's basically at this point, it's out of your hands. You want to serve those that are right there.
Well, I didn't realize this. Some of the Jewish families themselves are illegal. I found that one.
Oh, yes.
So it's kind of like catch-22. Some of them themselves are illegal. They're one family that's afraid to fly because they would be no flag. So they drive across the country, go to California and New York in their cars. They don't want to have a chance of being Yeah, so it's kind of ironic, you know, here they have a plant full of illegals working for them, and then they themselves.
Well, you see, originally when Aaron Rabashin started the plant, he brought in Russian Jews who were actually some illegals, so he was trying to help his people again.
Right. Well, and that's that culture, you know, very much, and that's been the frustration, and I've learned to adjust, and I know in the school, it's hard for the public school at times, especially when we have a couple of kiddos that are in the school system. Their religion is very much their life, and that's the one thing I've learned. I take them when I can get them because I tutor some of the kiddos, and so when they come to me, I'm happy to have them, but I also respect that the religion is always going to come first. And that's been an adjustment for our public school teachers that do work with those kiddos, with understanding, well, they're missing so many days. Yes, but the religion is always going to be first. You're never going to get that to change. You just need to, when you got them, work with them. And I think, you know, slowly they're starting to accept that. But that's
There's a lot to be said for what you just said. The community has gotten educated about beliefs, practices of other people.
I totally feel that way in this position. I knew nothing about the Jewish culture at all. And now, I mean, I'm always asking them questions and fascinated by it, you know, and like I said, it's been that trust building I've done for the last 7 years. When I first started with the position, they were just like, you're non-Jewish. They don't view us as Christian. They call us non-Jewish people. You're non-Jewish. I'm not going to have much to do with you. And now those families, I mean, like I said, I miss them when I don't see them on a regular basis because we've developed that relationship. It is really about trust building with that community. When they feel like they can trust you, then you're going to have their respect.
Well, even the huts with the pine branches on top. How many people?
Yeah.
Well, what are those? You know, it's
Well, and I know I educate. You know, I take time to, you know, teachers ask me questions. I tell them what I know, or I'll hook them up with a family. We have one of our families that comes in at Hanukkah time and talks about Hanukkah to the kids because some of our kiddos, we have a couple of kiddos that attend the public school. Well, it's educating everybody. That's what it's really about. It's educating. You know, these stereotypes are out there. And I had them going in, because again, I came from an all-white community. My husband had his own opinion, and I kind of listened to him. And when I first started, it's like, well, I had to wear a skirt when I went to this school, and I had to have my arms covered, you know, and it's just like, they knew I was non-Jewish because I didn't cover my hair. They would just put their hands in my hair. What is that stuff in your hair? You know, because to them, they didn't know it. And now I appreciate it, and I'm always asking them questions and always learning and trying to educate others about it as well.
It's a big thing.
what the kids ultimately see. We had a Jewish boy come in, and the kids. The new thing is Beyblades. They're totally obsessed with it. Beyblades. Yeah, they look like little tops that spin in a little bucket.
You think it was a dreidel?
You thought it was a dreidel?
Yeah. I know what you're
Well,
talking
the
about.
dreidel blades now.
Well, you know what? For that family to send their kids to the public school, that is a huge, huge thing. Because what I learned this last year, and I didn't realize this, but it makes sense. One of my families put it to me. They are, in a sense, because they choose to associate with the public school system, they are ostracized a little bit in their own community. And so, again, it's, you know, I've got to respect that we have 55 students enrolled in the homeschool program. I'm going to respect that they're taking that willingness to allow us to have them because they themselves in their own community are viewed a little bit differently. So it's been a very good journey, and I think in my own faith too, it's made me stronger in my own faith because I keep telling them when I'm like, well, you're not going to turn me into Jewish, but tell me more about it, you know?
Or even, you know, when you have a Hispanic boy telling a smaller girl, hey, your hijab thing, pull back up. You know, they understand, you know, that hair isn't supposed to be right. You know, that they're understanding.
Could you just talk more about that? How maybe your own faith has informed your response to the changing community, or how the community changing has changed this congregation living out its Christian faith?
I would say it's made my faith incredibly stronger.
Sure.
Because I realized that if I don't pursue it and I don't support the church that I attend, it could be gone. Because I realized that it takes if I don't, kind of like what one person, a former member, put into it, you need to take care of your church because one day it's going to take care of you. And it was like, where did I go to on 9/11? Where did I go to following the raid? Where was it important for me to be? And it was right back here. And so it definitely it taught my family as well that I have a responsibility that the faith drove all of these people to where they are today, that where I am, if something would happen to me that I'm torn from my community, what do I want? What do I want people to remember? When she was in that, what did she do? Was she even a part of the Lutheran Church? Didn't want that ambiguity of my faith, because their faith is so strong and it drives with it. I want them to be able to say, you know what, you go to the place with the red roof, don't you? Yep, I do. They don't have to know what my faith is or how I perceive it, but they know that's where I belong. It's something that I know it's important to them to have that identity. It ultimately became something to me that I need to make sure that identity is part of who I am. It definitely made my faith incredibly stronger.
I think it's hard to keep faith and church and state kind of separate at times.
I find that was more so it's easier for me because we couldn't discuss it, but I also found, and you'll laugh, you should not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. How many kids would say, God, that was awful to do. You don't even believe in him. Don't do it that way. I can't use it in a bad way. I said, I can't use it in a good way. You can't use it in a bad way. That offends me if you use it like that. And it's like, oh, okay. But definitely, it's like, so I found it was much easier to keep that church and state separate, but, because this is yours and this is mine and this is mine, but we're not going to use that name in that way. And it was that commandment became very evident to me how that term was misused.
Well, and I think like the Jewish culture is with them, they're surprised, the Torah, we're talking about the Torah, and so that's our Old Testament. They're surprised, like, you guys have this and this. Like, yeah, they had different names for it, obviously, but, we do have similarities. So I know a conversation some of the high school teachers were having one day, talking with Somalian about Moses. I think Moses is in their culture. And, well, Moses was, and they were talking, the Somalian was surprised that the teacher knew who Moses was. Like, well, yeah, we do have a lot of similarities. Yeah, we kind of all end at the Old Testament and then it branches off. But.
Well, I was visiting with a couple Somalians and we were having a conversation and I've also developed a relationship with a rabbi. And so he says, what do you Christians believe in? And he asked me the Torah and so forth. And we talk about that. And they didn't want to talk about Jesus. The rabbi did not want to talk about Jesus. The Somalians, however, being Muslim, we were talking, and I said, how do you define Jesus? Jesus is a great prophet, born of the Virgin Mary. That's what they would say. However, Jesus isn't any greater or less than Muhammad. It's just Muhammad's the last great prophet, and so they probably recognize Jesus at a higher substance or in a respectful manner than the Jewish community does. So kind of slowly building those relationships and so forth.
It's also made me think, we've had this discussion amongst teachers, so we don't celebrate any holidays. So because in our cultural respect, so I feel that's maybe a mistake that we would like to try to rectify. We don't celebrate the Jewish holidays, we don't celebrate the Muslim holidays, and we don't celebrate the Christian ones. And I think there's some appreciation in there that exposure to it a little bit would be nice, but we're just very academic every day. So we just kind of, that part of the culture is totally devoid.
Well, look at our concerts have changed. The music teacher struggles every day with the Christmas, now it's the winter concert. And she can't do Christmas songs, but a lot of parents want to hear. So when you went to your kid's Christmas concert, you heard the Christmas song. Unfortunately, she can't.
She'll stick with snow.
And she struggles because she's like, a lot of the good music literature is very Christian based, because that's just when they wrote it, that's what it is. And so she struggles with that every year. She always hates that winter concert because we do have one parent that will, if we do not, we have to keep Christian music out of it.
Well, some of the Somalian children never do
music
as well. You get a double amount of people.
But during Advent, or maybe it was right after Christmas, I get this photo. There it's from Dr. Sam Gary, and he sends it to me. And he says, "Life in Postville." And he had a picture of menorah. It was right across the church.
I was just going to ask about that. To me, that's always delightful. You drive through Postville, we have family that's been in St. Paul, so we drive through Postville a lot. Not around Hanukkah, to drive through Postville and to see not only, Christmas, but menorah hanging from the light posts. There's got to be a story of.
Oh, it's a long story. It was time to buy new holiday decorations for the city. And of course, we're talking dollar bills. And who's going to pay for those decorations? And who would like to help pay for those decorations? And if we're going to help out pay for those decorations, we would like to be part of those holiday decorations. And then after that was accepted, then the placement of where they were going to go. And now it's accepted. But at that time, it was a very hot topic. Placement of one rail outside the Lutheran Church. It was a hot topic, boy.
So notable right there, but because there's so much Christian-based stuff on there, I know the one. She's a good friend of mine, but her husband was raised Catholic and is from the area, so she's got just a different perspective herself. Their family's a little bit different, but she's like, you guys have some good stuff on there sometimes. She's like, I'm gonna look at that sign. I don't care.
Well, I've gotten complaints by 2 people in this community that are atheists, and they take offense to that sign when we put things up there. It's like we as Christians are condemning them, and so that's not the intent. We share the
property we can put up there.
Well, the couple things here as we start wrapping down here, because we have a 11:30 invitation at Brick Oven, and you're all invited for that. Is the worship communities. Annette raised up that there's 2 Jewish worship communities, one in the synagogue, right, Kitty Pontus from the church here, and then the other one is downtown. And they're 2 different worship communities. One Hasidic and the other one is Chabad. So they kind of got a little difference with that. And then there was a mosque, a makeshift mosque right next to it. So it was ironic. Here you see Muslims going in one door and you see Jewish folks going in the other door.
They had to move it for the Board of Adjustment where they were, because the women, I think with that too, the men and women kind of had to be separate, and there was no place for the women to go in this small area, so they moved it to a bigger place where the women could. They have a lot of similarities too in what they.
There was a big fire in downtown. The mosque was in operation. They opened it.
They rolled up the rugs, and that's where we served food. Our 4-H club was serving a fundraiser that day. Our 4-H club was serving a fundraiser that day, and because it was affecting the neighboring business, the wishing well, we shut it down, and we took all of our. We had like a roaster full of sandwiches. We had coffee, which took over my van, and we moved it downtown, and we served firefighters all out and worked all night. And then our Pulse place, our youth place, is an emergency shelter. So then families stayed there, and we moved the food upstairs, and so they could stay there for a few days so Red Cross could come in with their services.
But the mosque carpets were rolled up, and it was open.
We didn't even ask. They had it rolled back, and as soon as I came with the food, they were like, "Come on in." Come on in. And so
What about the Jewish community would do that?
Oh, they would do it. They would do it. Oh, you bet.
When I've gone in the grocery store, if I'm wearing a cleric, or because going someplace, or hospital calls, or funerals, or whatever it seems like, I'll walk in there, and here's a Somalian lady. She's all in her full dress. And here's a rabbi at the counter. He's paranoid because you can't receive change from a woman at the cash register. And I'm walking in. He's trying to avoid me. And here there's a Somalian woman. And, he's trying to get away from this as much as possible. But when I go in the post office, I always go down at the same time when I go. There's Somalians. They're there at the same. Maybe it's when they're on their break or something. They open the door and they say hello. Latinos say hello. And some of the Jewish folks are starting to recognize who I am, and they're starting to say.
Well, they're not all.
No,
but it's frustrating when people do say they're all. Like, I work with some great families, And they're just, and I don't want to say they're not limited, but their religion is so important to them. And we have to respect that. And I've learned to respect that. And it has really, my own faith has made me stronger, but it just made me appreciate my job a lot more and loved what I do, because, you know, it's myself and another gal that work only with those families. We don't have anybody else in the school district. So I feel it's my job to work to educate others in the school district, because they just don't have the opportunities. And they've given me some great, and I've just learned a lot, and I've appreciated what I have and what they have, and listen to what they have.
We need to have we've lost the ideal of respect for each other, for cultures. And my grandparents came over to this country in 1923. Grandma was pregnant with my mother, and that was post-World War I. And they were here. My grandma had one brother fight in the Nazi army for Hitler. Grandpa had two brothers fight in Nazi army. And when they came here, then going into the Depression, being German was not acceptable in our culture. They were profiled. Grandpa became so hard, and in his heart, and like with me, I don't like to hug, and that was because it was passed down from my parents, but more my mother. And it's just because you had your wall up the whole time.
Your bubble.
Yes, you had your bubble. And when they always say, well, those Germans are Norwegians, it isn't just Germans, Irish, Italians, all of the immigrants that came here, the way they were not always treated well. And I think your defenses go up. And so how do we able to understand one another? And that's what I'm continuing to
Stick with your own.
Yes, that's right. John, you were going to say something as we close here.
Kind of lost it, I guess.
He'll come back.
I was going to say, in the district, we have a Somali translator and a Hispanic translator full time. So if those parents need help, if they have questions, and even just as far as even services or new to the community, the school district, it's a fabulous service that we now have, which we needed a long time ago, that there's always a translator for them present to help them with whatever they need. I think that's been a real, and maybe John's got his thought back.
I just wanted to mention that I respect the Jewish people for their faith.
Mm-hmm.
They practice their faith above and beyond, and they are really dedicated to their faith. I really admire it.
Well, and tradition and family.
Yeah, I admire
values
that.
we all attain to, and that's why I say being involved in this has made my faith so much stronger. My family is so much more important to me. And when you realize what sacrifices the people have to do, that your faith and your, it's what is it, faith, family, freedom, those are all so.
And the Latino communities as well within the community of Postville, their faith is so important to them, their worship life, and even the Somalian community, many of the Somalians I've gotten to know, family is so important
And
in
importance
their
of
worship.
prayer.
Yes, the prayer.
Like, man,
We need to teach
pray
us
5 times a day.
Christians
Man, I need to do that. Yeah, that's not as much. I mean, it's kind of, that ebb and flow as parents hear it, and then that's kind of quieted down a little bit. It's and like when we do, First Communion and confirmation, that the children are old enough to appreciate it. That's where I think came in. They understood they needed to pray, but they didn't understand the purpose of why they needed to pray, because it was fun to go to the bathroom, spray the water, and then that importance of understanding the sacrament before you participate in it was.
Well, seeing their peers participating in Muslim prayer each day, I'm sure that is also an interesting example for the kids as well, to see that their peers are practicing their faith in a very real way.
Someplace private,
right? But that they do it.
They do it.
And it's like, oh, well, that guy, okay, maybe I can do my church thing too, because that's what the peers are doing, which is kind of neat.
Mine are forced to go to church.
Another documentary that I mentioned this to Mark, Annette brought it to my attention, is the documentary Abused. Yes, and it's very, very powerful. And I kind of went through the trailers and kind of gleaned through it. And when I heard Lorraine talking about, people hanging on the meat lockers just to avoid immigration, it was ironic, because this documentary will talk about, from the government standpoint, we treated everybody humanely. We did it, and that's not what this documentary is about. It was not good. And so I highly recommend it. It's what, an hour and a half or something like that.
I think I'm probably going to use teach a J-term course up in southwestern Minnesota, and a component of that experience is to talk about what we just been talking about today, and introduce that video.
Well, he came, the one that created the video, he did come to our public school system. It was in 2010, and shortly after I started, and I've done, I don't think the elementary was in on that one, but our high school, junior high school for sure got to do it. And I think there were, if I remember it, I think there was some conflict on him because it's a pretty strong video. Mm-hmm. And me myself, having not really been huge, I was working out of town in a different school district, so I wasn't as present in the area as they obviously was. But just watching that video and then getting to know what Jennifer and Elmer, what really went on, it's powerful. It's very eye-opening, and it's hard. Those families, our government doesn't make it easy for them, and something has to change because these are families, really good. Most of them are good and just want to make a better life for themselves, and they come from horrendous conditions.
I gave you a voice. This is our monthly newsletter, and inside I put an excerpt from Barnabas. Since Marcia was not able to be here, that kind of tells about what it's an important part of the ministry that we have here in this church, which does affect those who have come from other countries as well, and from other groups, ethnic groups as well, and that's another important component of this congregation. And I want to thank all of you, and we can continue this conversation at the Brick Oven, and I hope all of you, or what your schedules are here as well.
If you can, please join us. It's my treat.
Oh,
and this is something that I hope, Mark, we can continue as well. This congregation is very much open to share the story.
Well, this course will probably happen again in 2 years. Cycle of courses that I do. I'd also be interested in hearing, you noted right at the very beginning that a lot of what you read about Postville is inaccurate. I would love to hear from you what is accurate, so that
I was going to say, if anything that's currently out there, I can say with all certainty, Jackie's documentary is 100% accurate.
I think Louisa's stuff is good, and there was a book that came out by Luz Maria and Virginia Gibbs that came out a couple years ago. They did extensive interviews with I don't know if it was all the women, but I think it was about 10 women who had the ankle bracelets on. And they kind of collected their stories, and the book is a collection of those women's voices and their experience. And that's a really great resource because there are very few, we talked about this last night, but most of the stuff that's been written about Postville is more from an academic viewpoint looking in on the community, and this is the story of those women in their own words. It's a really good book. They put it out, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. They were both professors at Luther, but they were very involved with the assistance with Pastor David in helping the families and doing a lot of the translating and stuff after the raid. So
he is working with a group from UNI that has a website that has a lot of documents, videos, news articles about Postville.
I was actually the project manager for that. It's called Postville Project, and we have all the raw footage from Luis's documentary. I digitized all of the materials from Nina Taylor.
Okay.
On the Taste of Postville. She had all these scrapbooks that she had saved, which are a great resource. All of that and all of the, lots of different things from news and media outlets, but also just from people like Nina, and there were other individuals who said, Sister Mary, she had lots of things. She had kept all the church bulletins from all the prayer vigils and all the prayers that they had used in those vigils, and so that's a good resource too, but I'll put it on our site. We have like a resource page where sharing about
that'd be great.
rural ministry and immigration. So
I know Elmer Herrera wrote a book too. This is in Spanish. And I keep telling him you need to write it in English because he does have a frontal perspective where he's working with him. He knows a lot of what's going on and he shares a lot of that in his book. And I write this in English so we can read it. I can't read Spanish.
And then like you see those like television programs are covered in Postville, and you can sit there and you say, I know that person's words have been twisted. It's just painful to watch some of it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to say goodbye to you, Grant, and I'll digitize some of the information that was handed out and put it up on the course site so you can see it too. And
Thank you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
talk to you next week.
Well, it's just kind of where some of the businesses, it's kind of what they did with me when they toured me through town, kind of synagogues, places of worship, different places, even with some of the different housing aspects of it, how the packing plant was part of